Tread lightly. Invariably, it's the
Inviting them?
Oh, actually, just FYI, that doorbell, we don't use that. So just, yeah. You want Charles? No.
I have one more.
Yes. That is certainly.
Thank you very much.
Although I don't want to say that for obvious reasons.
You mean you have a full page?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the May 2nd edition of the Lexington City Council. Before we begin our meeting, I'd like to welcome those that have ventured out on a beautiful night and come inside instead of staying outside and playing. And invite anybody who does intend to speak tonight to council during item 8, our citizens' remarks and comments, to please sign up ahead of time there so we can identify you at that time in the meeting. And with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And first item of business, if you all will please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Our next item is consideration of the agenda. I'm not aware of any changes or additions. And unless there's an objection, we will approve the agenda as presented. It stands approved. Next item is the fun part of proclamations, and I'll ask Janie to join me in front here as we proclaim Municipal Clerks Week. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, and Jen can get your smile recorded for posterity. Jenny, this is a proclamation, the 55th Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week, May 5 through 11, 2024. Whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world. And whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants. And whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas the professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. And whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. And whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the professional municipal clerk. Now, therefore, as mayor of the city of Lexington, I do recognize the week of May 5 through 11, 2024 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerk, Janie Hostetter, and to all professional municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. Adopted the second day of May, 2024. Janie, thank you for your neutrality, your calm and supportive demeanor when council isn't always, and guiding us and having us prepared at all of our meetings. We're grateful for your work and proud of the accomplishments you've made as a professional municipal clerk and the designations that you've earned through your education. You want to say a few words?
Thanks for keeping me on.
Absolutely. We also have a proclamation expressing the appreciation of the mayor and city council to our local law enforcement officers and support staff. And as there's no one here to present it to, I will not read it in its entirety, but I will provide the therefore. We, the mayor and Lexington City Council, call upon all citizens of Lexington, Virginia, to observe the week of May 11 through 18, 2024 as Police Week, during which all of our citizens may join in commemorating law enforcement officers past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and in doing so have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. And we urge all citizens to take the time to thank those in law enforcement for the important service they provide to all of us. And that encompasses the Lexington Police Department, Rockbridge County Sheriff's Department, Buena Vista Police Department, Buena Vista Sheriff's Department, Glasgow Police Department, Rockbridge Regional Jail, Virginia Military Institute. And all of these comprise the finest officers, supervisors, and administrative and support staff that can be found within the profession. So please take a time in the next week to thank these folks and to recognize them. Thank you, Council, for your indulgence and support. Next item, presentations, and thrilled to invite up our team from VMI to present the popular annual financial report. And with that, Cole, take it away. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council, Mayor Friedman, everyone. Thank you for having us here once again and continuing this great partnership with the popular annual financial report. I stood in the exact same place about a year ago, and it feels good to be back. I think it's the exact same crowd for the most part, which is really special, really neat. And just as a note, I'm graduating VMI coming up here in the next couple of weeks, and to look up and see those placards with the County of Rockbridge, the Commonwealth of Virginia, and Rockbridge County Public Schools, and knowing that I'm about to move on to the outside world and have a hand and have a part in all three of those is really special. So I just noticed that and wanted to say that. But without further ado, we'll get into the work we did with the report. The work was done by myself, my friend Jay here, who'll be taking over the program next year, and he'll be a second class cadet, and then our faculty advisor, Dr. Bing Jang. So about the project, again, I'm a Lexington native. I started the project in the spring of 2021 with a couple of then seniors, now folks who are graduated in VMI in the military. And then I have my first mentee ever, again, Jay, kind of helped coach him through it a little bit this year. And then Dr. Jay, who's coached me through this project the past few years. It's been a great relationship. I think the biggest thing I've learned working through this project is communication and a little bit of teamwork. The communications between the city government, Dr. J and myself, has been kind of a neat flow to learn. Sometimes things move slow, sometimes they move quickly. It's just kind of how government and how working with different groups of people goes. So that's been neat to learn. So we'll get into kind of the nuts and bolts. First, the year highlights for fiscal year 2023 is what we focused on. We saw steady progress in infrastructure and capital improvements. We'll get on those, talk about those here in a minute. One notable improvement is the Diamond Street water and sewer enhancement with a cost of a little over $5 million. That was something that was quite obviously needed by the city and was done fairly swiftly. Then that whole project was intended to provide clean water and reduce costs from kind of leaky pipes or sewage systems that cause excess maintenance fees for the city of Lexington. And there are some other projects completed, including the Route 60 bridge repair, as well as lime kiln drainage improvements. Those kind of the big yearly highlights for fiscal year 23. Some more infrastructure improvements. The Randolph Street sidewalk cost you see on the top right there, that photo there. The East Washington Street curb and gutter right below it. ADA compliant sidewalk on South Main, that third picture down. And then a project near and dear to my heart is the Brubaker the timber frame project there. VMI also has a little bit of a hand in the timber framing project. So while I wasn't on the Brubaker project, I was on the project that put a pavilion behind the high school a couple of years ago. So Greg and that whole crew, they do a great job with that. So money well spent there. Now, so the general fund, I think all of us in this room know or are familiar with what the general fund is, but as a refresher, it's kind of the main pool where the city operates, the main kind of capital that the city spends. So the revenues for the general fund, think in taxes and fees and fines, that kind of stuff, totaled around $27.5 million in fiscal year 23, which was around $2 million more than was budgeted in the year prior. So that's always a win to have a little bit of extra cash in the bank. You can see those figures there of the revenue came from mostly property taxes, intergovernmental taxes, other local taxes as well. But also you can see to give some love for the smaller figures, permits, fees, fines, recovered costs, things like that. And then expenses, the part people don't like to talk about as much, but is a reality in government. So our total expenditure for fiscal year 23 was a little over $21 million, which was lower than the approved budget of around 22.7 million, which is always great. And again, is a great sign of how the city is spending its money and how it's working, in my opinion, on the broader scale. The expenses of the city did increase by about 4% from fiscal year 2022, where the total expenditure was around $20 million. But obviously that's not, it's not uncommon to see that, and inflation's rising, the cost of things are more expensive, keeping up your capital projects. It makes sense that would increase by a little bit. And I don't think that's an alarming number. We'll get into, let's see, we got government revenue. Yeah, we'll go on to that. So governmental revenue, the revenue there for fiscal year 2023 was around $35 million, which was up 34% from fiscal year 22, which was the largest increase in about a decade. In that you can see here on the right, let's see, on the right, came from that intergovernmental, which was on the last slide. You can see that large, or 2 slides ago, that larger piece of the pie, that intergovernmental revenue was big. This increase is attributed to higher revenue from the use of money and property, and as I mentioned, intergovernmental revenue. And in fiscal year 23, saw around just shy of $5 million in ARPA funds recognized by the city as well. Now, expenditure, governmental expenditure was around 33, pushing $34 million, was up by about 30% from fiscal year 2022. A large part of this was contributions to education, public safety, capital outlay. So all worthy causes, and in my opinion, some strong priorities for the city to put its money towards. And then long-term debt we have here. So the city's debt obligation rose by only around $35,000, which is a minute increase in the current fiscal year. But despite the increase, the city's current long-term debt is around $33 million, but it is below the debt ceiling of $67 million, which is a safe margin to be under. So with that kind of wraps up our highlights from the city spending fiscal year 2023. If there are any questions, happy to try my best to answer those, or at least refer you to someone who might be able to answer them a little better.
Members of council have questions regarding the presentation? Or just questions for Cole in general?
I got a question in general
Yeah.
for you.
Yes, sir.
So, thank you for doing this project. Can you tell us what you plan to do after May 16th?
Yes, sir. So my plan now is to commission in the Navy. Still working kind of the medical side of it. That can be kind of a pain sometimes. So working that, but hopefully I'll know after a couple weeks after graduation, if that's the plan. If not, I had an internship with Kelserman Lee, who has a big hand in Lexington. So would potentially work with them if the military side of it didn't work out. So there's always a chance I'll stay in the greater Rockbridge County area. Well, if there are no other questions, I just want again say thank you to Dr. J and the folks over at VMI for making this possible, as well as the city of Lexington. Thank you.
Before you scoot, I was going to
Yes, sir.
say, having led the charge last year and again this year, were there any particular observations you looking from one year to the next. Obviously, you have a discerning eye in both years, but anything that jumped out at you, or as you were looking at it, that obviously you covered a lot of stuff in your presentation, but there's something that, yeah, you thought was interesting, or
I thought I'm always proud of how we don't spend more than we take in. So that's the first thing. That's just, I think, how I think about government too, and how it should be. But we won't get into that. But also the debt, that was something I hadn't seen. I hadn't seen the debt kind of basically stay in the same spot in the past few years I've done this project. So that was extremely impressive. So yeah, so that would probably be it for me.
terrific. Thank you.
With the increase in revenue and the money and property, is there anything that stuck out to you in that?
No, sir. So we kind of the what's the name of the comprehensive report, the comprehensive annual financial report. Sorry, I blanked. That is so well organized that we just kind of look at the basic figures and don't have to dig into where the money in each specific category is coming from. That seems like a high number. I can't remember off the top of my head how it stacks up to years past, but I think it's good to have that revenue. That's not a great answer because since I don't know many details about it, but
Well, thank you.
of course.
I think we were the beneficiary of having a nice savings account, the fund balance, which was earning significant interest.
Right.
And then the ARPA funds that we did realize. And then we also have an agreement with Rockbridge County, where they provide us some revenue sharing on their tax receipts. And so
Okay.
that was also some of that intergovernmental. And so it's
Makes sense.
definitely a combination of things. And thank you for giving us credit for not spending more than we bring in. I enjoy the report each year because it gives us a quick chance to look backwards. Sometimes we're just constantly looking forward. And of course, Lexington and Rockbridge County is good at looking a couple hundred years backwards, but
Right.
just looking last year at what we accomplished and knocking out the project in Diamond Hill that seemed like it would never end, but we got it done. And there's a local contractor that really led on that. We got the Route 60 bridge done. That was something that we thought about as a council of putting off and maybe tapping into some state dollars to eventually repair that bridge. But we received those ARPA dollars and we knocked it out.
Right.
We did it. And the sidewalk, it's tremendous to kind of look backwards because we don't do anything here. It's public works, it's city staff. They oversee all the projects. They do them. They help. We just, say we approve it. But
Right.
it's fun. Thank you for this great report.
Of course. Yeah, and I will say as well, the Diamond Street project, that whole, to the best of my knowledge, that was just kind of like the initial lead off of repairing other systems that, are getting older and older. So kudos to Mr. Pat Madigan and that crew over there that, has their priorities straight. We're going to start from the oldest systems, the things that need work the most, and then work our way down. So it's a great setup.
Again, thank you for being with us and for the work going into this. And most importantly, thank you for being a great leader and mentoring Jay to step in. And we look forward to his handiwork next year. And Dr. Bing, we're grateful for your support in shaping these young men to become very successful and contributing members of our society.
Thank you all very much.
Certainly. Jeff, did you want to get a picture, did you say? Okay, good. Fantastic. And as we talked about before, you're welcome to stay for the duration of our meeting, but if you want to go study for finals, that's okay too. You take your mother will be proud. Next item on our agenda is public hearing. Consideration of ordinance 2024-04 that appropriates the funds approved for the fiscal year 2025 budget. And Jen, any introduction?
Just a brief introduction. You approved the budget at the last council meeting, so this is just giving us permission to spend that money. Included in the ordinance, though, are the fees that the city will charge in FY25. And we made some minor adjustments to fees around the city, which I detailed in the briefing in your meeting packet. The most notable, that's a large percentage, although not a large dollar amount, is reflected in the cemetery services. And the fees that we've proposed for FY 25 more accurately reflect the true cost of the city to perform those services. And Public Works also called the other two local cemeteries in Buena Vista and Rockbridge County to make sure that we wouldn't be outpricing them. And with these proposed fees for FY 25, we fall squarely in between our two neighbors.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for Jen? Hearing none, would like to open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak to this evening. Hearing nothing but the dull roar of the HVAC system, it will close the public hearing at 7:20 and ask for council's consideration.
I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2024-04, which will appropriate funds for the FY 25 budget and establish rates and fees to fund the budget.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I would ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Mr. Alligood.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much. Next item, consideration of minutes. You have the April 11 and April 18 minutes there with the school board and regular council meeting. Unless there's an objection, those were included in your packet, and unless there's an objection, we will approve those as presented. They are approved. Next is the opportunity for citizens to address council, and would like to invite anyone who would like to speak. We didn't have anyone sign up, but doesn't mean you can't still speak. So is there anyone who would like to speak to council this evening? Hearing none, I was reprimanded by Doug Harwood after the last meeting that I went too quickly. He had something to say and didn't get it in, but he let me know anyway. Next item, consent agenda. Item 9.1 for your consideration.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a dueling second. And ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Alligood.
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much. Next item, unfinished business, consideration of request from Echelon Resources, and I'll call on the interim city manager.
Thank you. So this item continues to be a placeholder. Leslie, David, and I had another call with the Echelon team on Monday, April 22nd, and we anticipate bringing this item before council at the May 16th meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. And look forward, any comments from council or anything to add from our committee? Very good. Reports communication, Blue Ridge Resource Authority, Mr. Smith.
No report.
Main Street Lexington, Mr. Smith.
Sidewalk sales last weekend. I hope everybody got a chance to get down and get some deals. Upcoming is Rock the Bridge, Saturday, June 8th. Advanced tickets are on sale now. On the Main Street Lexington website, $8 in advance, $10 at the door. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Planning Commission, Ms. Strawn.
Planning Commission met on April 25th, and the Planning Commission unanimously approved a zoning ordinance amendment to allow food trucks to operate in Jordan's Point Park and Brubaker Field Sports Complex with a written agreement with the city of Lexington. And this will come to council for approval shortly. I'm not sure if it'll be at our next meeting, but soon. And then Arnie Glazer, the Director of Planning, will hold a yet to be scheduled work session with council on a batch of annual zoning ordinance amendments. And there are about 10 to 15 minor but necessary amendments that were approved by Planning Commission last month. And so he just wants to have the opportunity to give everybody a brief update on what each one means. And then we began discussing cottage housing. And cottage housing is a group of small, single-family dwelling units clustered around a common area. and it has a higher density than regular single-family zoning. And the goal is to amend our zoning to allow cottage housing in the appropriate residential areas. And then Pat Bradley shared that his term expires on July 31st, and he will not be reapplying due to other obligations. He's going to be the chair for the state, oh no, I'm going to blank on what it is, as Classics Society. We will miss Pat. He's done a wonderful job, and he's been on Planning Commission 8 years, I think a little bit over 8 years. I think he finished someone else's term and then had 2 terms of his own. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Strawn. Any questions for Leslie?
On the cottage housing, is there where you said, I guess there's certain areas of the city you're looking at, or is there any anything further on that, or just kind of open it?
No, we just started looking at it. We did Arnie and Kate put together a nice presentation with some photos, and we did look at a couple possible lots just to understand what size you need. And it can be even a little bit less than an acre, but most of them are around an acre. So we looked at a couple possibilities, but we were just trying to understand what cottage housing is at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Strawn. Regional Tourism, Mr. Betts.
No report other than, I guess, 2 items. I didn't have a written report. One is just to say I attended the mounting unit debut, as did a couple other members of council, and good to see the horse out there. There's a lot of public attention. People were there, which was good. Interacted, and I think that's part of what it's all about. And then the other thing is that we're not going to have a May meeting for regional tourism. So our next meeting will be in June, 3rd week, Wednesday at 9 a.m. as normal.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
So is the mounted unit now patrolling every day,
No,
or will it be once a month or once every couple of weeks? I mean,
Special event.
Yeah, it was more special events
Yeah.
is what. she
And
said.
instead of speculating, we'll have the chief come and brief us on that. So, yeah. Rockbridge Area Recreation Organization, Mr. Ziegler.
the RARA Board of Directors met yesterday. We kind of were going through our spring sports. We got great numbers. I think I've shared that before, how our baseball numbers, we've got 258 kids playing baseball and 151 playing softball. Just tremendous numbers. 23 river runners. We've got pickleball of about 23 people doing intro and 47 doing more regular, more advanced. And then adult basketball numbers are at 27. One thing that was really cool that was shared with us is something that our executive director did on his own. Something that's a passion of his. He went and received 3 days of training from DWR. DWR in Virginia is the Department of Wildlife Resources. It used to be DGIF, which we're all familiar with DGIF. And he did 3 days of training so that he can teach essentially hunter safety classes. And that's something that is not often offered in person in Rockbridge County. He explained to our RARA Board of Directors that in Augusta County, everyone knows when those courses are. They're regular, you know, they're very well known. You attend them. If you're going to hunt when your age is 12 to 15, you have to get a certain license. Older, you've got to get certain license. Hunter safety, it's just everyone knows about it. In Rockbridge County, we kind of have a void of when classes are, or if they ever are in person, and not just online. There is a class that's often offered in conjunction with the Jakes program, but it's a 6-hour class. And that event is usually one day. And there's a lot of exciting things going on at the Jakes program. And it's really hard to pull kids away from all of the activities to say, come sit in a classroom for 6 hours and receive this training that is required. And so our executive director went and received the training, and he intends to provide free to the community on the calendar that you know when it is that he will offer that training. And it's something that, you know, I mean, I'm not a hunter, so it's not something that's always on my radar, but it's something that apparently there's a void for it, and RARO that works to provide, you know, recreational opportunities and of course safety We are pretty excited that our executive director took on this initiative and that we feel like it makes our entire community a little bit safer that we've got folks that can now receive this training in person rather than online, because I think we all know that in person is usually better than online. So want to uplift Chad in his initiative in doing that. So any questions?
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. Yes, Chad, we are very blessed to have him in our community and working with the youth and as well as the families and parents in our community. Does a terrific job. Threshold, Ms. Alexander.
No report.
Maury Service Authority, Mr. Alligood.
I do have a report. The Maury Service Authority Board met last week, and I mentioned to you the previous meeting that we were going to be talking about some substantive things, and the result of the meeting, one of the results, was that the plan for the first bid for the modernization projects that you've been hearing me talk about forever in there is scheduled to be set for bids for the end of October and the 1st of November. So at that point, when the bids are returned, we're going to have a much better sense of how closely the estimates that have been prepared for the project are going to be to the actual construction bids to carry out the project. So this is new. And so there are a couple of projects that the engineering is getting finished that has to be finished before those documents can be put out for bid. But that's the big news. And so it's moving. The big thing. So we'll see, and fingers crossed.
So,
Smith.
The bids are opening end of October and early November, or that's when that's the deadline? Or what's the window, I guess?
Bids will be, the documents will be put out for bid, make that clear, not bids coming in.
Okay.
And so once the documents are out for bid, then the bids will be returned from those contractors who are interested in bidding. And then the MSA board will look at them and make a determination as to where the awards are going to be.
What's the deadline for the bids?
It's going to be in November if they end up in October. So I look for that to start happening there at the end of October, 1st of November.
Are you all gonna release an RFP?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how are you gonna, have there been any discussion about how you're gonna release the RFP or where you're gonna advertise it to kind of collect bids? Does that make sense?
There is the answer. We haven't directly discussed that procedure, but there is a procedure for letting these documents out for bid, and contractors know what it is in there. So, but I can't tell you what it is.
Will the executive director be handling that process, I trust, or?
Yes, with the oversight of the MSA board because of the dollar values involved. The MSA board has authorized the executive director up to a certain dollar amount lower than what is anticipated for these bids. And so the executive director won't have the exclusive authority without board approval for these major projects.
And if I remember correctly with MSA, I think that MSA is limited on what projects they can do without coming back to the municipalities.
Currently, the contract between MSA is in progress, in review, and hasn't been formalized yet.
The articles and the bylaws were
It-
being,
Sorry.
the articles were being reviewed. I think I even mentioned at the last meeting, that was something that I hope to be working on in short order. They have not come to me yet from the county attorney who was looking at them last. I'm anticipating getting some red lines from him. Then Jim had some thoughts on how the document should be modified. Frankly, at this point, we may end up waiting for Tom to get here and get his thoughts before we put forth our edits. But that is something we anticipate continuing over the next several weeks.
Right,
Finish up
and-
those
and-
documents, which would I think the plan is increase to some extent the amount that MSA can do without going back to the member localities, but that'll again be up to the member localities to decide how much flexibility they want to give MSA.
Very good.
Is there a certain amount of bids you all are looking for, expecting, and or trying to get before you move forward?
The project has been split into 5-year periods. And so the first 5 years, second 5 years, and third 5 years to spend the $90 million. And fingers crossed, we don't know because we have no contractors' bids what the actual cost is going to be for these projects for which estimates have been put on, engineering estimates have been received for $90 million, but that's not 90 million for the first 5 years. I want to say it was 15 million for the first 5 years.
So I guess my question would be for the first, say, 5 years, or I think is that how you say you're doing it?
Right,
About
5
years.
and 10.
Would you be looking for, say, 3 bids, or like, are you looking for a certain amount of, I guess, different companies or contractors or subcontractors?
Right,
Is
not
there-
necessarily a single contract.
Right. And I didn't know if you had any thoughts or had talked about, are you looking for 3 bids, 2 bids, 5 bids, anything like that, or just seeing what comes in and going from there?
There's been a little discussion about who probably is going to be bidding
Right.
on the project, and you don't know what that ends up being until you offer the documents for bid. It depends on the workload of contractors at the time. Sometimes I've seen only a single bid on these things, which could get tough.
And to answer your earlier question, Mr. Betts, there's a website that the Commonwealth of Virginia runs, EVA,
Okay.
which is really good for posting bids. And I anticipate MSA would do, I don't know this, of course, but I anticipate they would do something like that, which maximizes competition. It gets it out to as many people as possible.
Right.
The other thing that MSA may do is put it on their website. Of course, they can advertise it in papers, but EVA is really the best way of getting that type of.
Yeah, hopefully there would be multiple bids to kind of have some competition and keep the price
Well, that's right.
as reasonable as possible.
That's right. And we're obviously concerned because we don't have a sense of what any of those contractors' bid amounts are going to be. All we have going right now are the engineering estimates, which, as you've heard me say, are quite high. So high that we're adjusting our city budget to start accumulating some money in reserve, contemplating that we'll have to pay for it, at least our share.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Mr. Alligood? Is that end of report?
End of report.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Thank you. For my report, just a couple of items. One, I was heading north out of town, and as I drove on the bypass under the bridge, approaching the Maury River, there was a beehive of activity going on, and it's the Glasgow Women's Club, as you are going out of town on the right there, that put mulch and decorated or cleaned it up and have planted quite a few flowers. So very grateful to that group out of Glasgow for their work in making that look so good, welcoming friends and neighbors alike. Also, just wanted to take a point of personal privilege on 2 items. One, to thank Jen for being our interim city manager. One of the anticipated obligations is meeting with me to have lunch to prepare the agenda for the meetings. And we had a tour of Lexington today. And so I'm grateful to Jen for her patience and professionalism as we point out opportunities for improvement in our community. And then would also like to just remind council members to be thinking about, we have several folks on the IDA who have indicated, actually, I think their terms have ended, and that some that are not planning to continue to run, that we need to find replacements for, as well as for the Planning Commission with Dr. Bradley's announcement, looking at that. So those 2 in particular, we don't ever want to find ourselves in a situation where they can't meet because there's not a quorum from that standpoint. And then the other point of personal privilege, I'm looking for a 5K runner. If there's anyone on council who would be interested this Saturday in participating in that leg of the Road and River Relay, I'm in search of a runner. I don't have one yet.
I am so flattered that you think we can be runners, so thank you for that.
Part of me was thinking it could be a relay race amongst the six of you.
I nominate Marilyn Alexander.
Fantasy.
And with that, I'd like to turn over to Jen.
Thank you. Good evening again. I have only a few updates for council this evening. Paving at Jordan's Point Park was completed between yesterday and today, and it looks fantastic. We hired a new recruit at the police department to start later this month, and that brings us back to being fully staffed. Congratulations to Sergeant Dreelan on her recent promotion. The fire department recently worked with mutual aid agencies on a mock crash demo for high school students ahead of their prom last weekend to emphasize the dangers of drinking and driving. Unfortunately, it was cut a little bit short because they got called to a working structure fire in the south end of the county, but I think they got their point across. The fire department also participated in the local Day in K event, which is designed to introduce rising kindergarten students to schools. And lastly, the city received an additional $23,000 in opioid abatement funds from settlements with Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, and Allergan. End of report.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for Jen? Yes, ma'am.
The additional funding we received from the opioid funding, will we need to appropriate that to?
We will. No group has requested it at this point, so hopefully we'll receive a request.
Very good. Any other questions? City Attorney.
Only brief matter is as you'll recall, the last meeting, we made some edits to that Brightspeed franchise agreement. We've made those edits. Frank signed them. We submitted them to Brightspeed. They've now executed it and returned the document. So that's behind us. Other than that, the last couple of weeks, I've been assisting the police department with some FOIA requests, but not much else. So happy to answer any questions. Well, one thing I do want to mention, if I'm Jen and Janie and I were talking, and we'd had a discussion several meetings ago about some FOIA training. And one of the things we may try to do, if it suits everyone, is piggyback that with Arnie's work session, so we can knock out both items at the same time. That suits everybody.
Anyone have any objection to that being partnered together? Very good.
Any questions? Sorry.
Any questions? Thank you for your work on the Brightspeed and appreciate council's input. Good items in there, and glad we're moving forward with their franchise. Not aware of any new business. And with that, we do have a closed meeting, so we will excuse everyone from the room. But we do not anticipate any action at the conclusion of this meeting. We'll just come back into open session and adjourn is the expectation. So thank you all for being with us.
Move that the City Council of the City of Lexington convene in closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A3 for the purpose of discussing and considering the disposition of publicly held real property at 626 Waddell Street and Spotswood Drive, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the city's bargaining position or negotiating strategy, and Virginia Code 2.2-3711A29 for the purpose of discussing and considering the award of an amended public contract with Urban Core Realty LLC and Echelon Resources Incorporated pertaining to 626 Waddell Street and Spotswood Drive, where the contract amendment will involve the expenditure of public funds, and discussion in an open session would adversely affect the city's bargaining position or negotiating strategy. You've heard the motion. I need a second. Thank you, Nick. And this is a roll call vote. Ms. Strawn.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Sigler.
Aye.
Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Mr. Alligood. I vote aye. And I'll wait for the mayor. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.